はい、お待たせいたしました。それではお時間になりましたので、本日のセミナー、元ブッキングドットコムのコーチが教える OKR を成功させるために OKR の基礎と土台を始めます。本日ご登壇いただくのは OKRs for Success で代表を務めるメラニー・ウェッセルズさんです。彼女は大手旅行予約サイトブッキングドットコムに約9年間所属し、アジャイルコーチとして同社における OKR の導入と浸透をリードした実績をお持ちです。本編をご覧いただく前にメラニーさんに少しだけご挨拶いただきたいと思います。
Hello everyone. こんにちは。お元気ですか？私の名前は Melanie. That is all the Japanese I can say for today. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm really happy to see so many of you today listening to this webinar, because again, OKRs is such an exciting topic. I know most of you will want to use it for your business, but I'm also here today to inspire you, hopefully a little bit, that it can also be used for your personal life. So both for your business and your personal life today, you will probably have a really nice upgrade. Thank you so much, and I hope you will enjoy the webinar. Okay, hello everyone. Konnichiwa to all of you in Japan. I don't know if there's anyone also from outside Japan, but a very good day to you. My name is Melanie, and I'm going to share with you a webinar today about a really exciting topic, OKRs. The webinar will last about 45 minutes in total. It might be a little bit longer, let's see. And of course, after you've been watching this webinar, you'll be able to join me for a live Q&A. So if there's any questions that pop up for you during this time together, feel free to come back to me during the Q&A so that we can dive into some of the questions that you have and maybe explore together some of the things that stood out to you. Okay, I'm going to be sharing a presentation with you. So let me just get that ready. And there we go. So what I wanted to start with today is the fact that 80% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by the first week of February in the new year. And I think this is very important because it shows a big flaw around goal setting. Like a lot of people set goals and they give up on them. And something specifically like New Year's resolutions are supposed to be exciting, right? But because there's something not really complete about New Year's resolutions, they usually don't succeed. And the reason why they don't succeed is because New Year's resolutions are usually pretty fake. They're not really having like a clear metric around them. They're just like, I'm going to stop smoking, but you don't really decide something with that. So that's why I wanted to start today with talking a little bit about this New Year's resolution, because it really shows how goal setting in general never works out because of the missing part that OKRs does have, which is the measurable part. And we're going to dive into that a little bit later. First, quickly, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my OKR story, because you might wonder, why am I the right person to talk to you about OKRs? I used to work at Booking.com. I worked there for 10 years. And this is also where I got introduced to Ben Lamort, who was going to introduce OKRs to our company. I actually got a project together with him to take care of the introduction together. So I worked with Ben for 2 weeks. We set up everything in Booking to make sure that we were ready for an OKR launch. And it was really nice to work with Ben. He's an American OKR expert. And I remember we went out to dinner together right before the training started. And I was actually not that excited yet at the time about OKRs. I was a bit like, oh, it's another project. Why are we going to have to do this? But then Ben showed me that evening why OKRs are so great. And that's mainly for me because he was actually talking to me also about personal goal setting. So he asked me at the time in the restaurant, like, Mel, why are you excited to work on OKRs? And I told him, well, I'm not so sure. And he said, well, don't you have a goal or something that you want to work on? And I told him about the goal of, that I wanted to become a better manager, that I wanted to get my team to do more at work. And then he actually said, well, don't you have some personal goals first that you want to tackle? And I had tons of them, and I didn't have a lot of time, or I didn't prioritize my own personal development. And that evening on a napkin, we made like a whole list of things that I wanted to become better at, like, for example, learning new languages and reading more books. And that's what got me really excited. And that's also how I found out that personal goal setting can be a really nice trigger to kind of get excited about OKRs, because once you see what they can do for you in your personal life, you can also kind of explore the great benefits that they have in business and in the corporate world. So I wanted to show you a little bit, like, thanks to OKRs, there's a lot of things that I was able to accomplish. For example, I started my own OKR consultancy because I had OKRs written around them. If I hadn't done that at the time, I would have probably lost track. I would have probably not been able to set such sharp goals and know where I was going. Also, for example, I read a lot more books. So what I would like to tell you in this webinar is also, of course, we're going to talk mainly about business and the corporate world, but I think it will be very interesting for all of you if you also really see if you can apply this to your personal life. And if there is something that you can also really keep using forever, even if you maybe switch company or go to somewhere where they don't use OKRs, then you can always apply them in your personal life, and you can get better in that way, which is very exciting. Okay, so a little bit more about me. I am an Agile coach by profession, also an OKR expert. I also do a lot of coaching at the site, mainly motivational coaching. Not necessarily around OKRs, but for example, about personal development also. I have a lot of OKR experience. Right now, it's more than 7 years that I've worked with them. So I do believe that I am the right person to talk to you about them today. And I've also been hosting OKR conferences globally. The 3 biggest ones that were organized here in Amsterdam, I have facilitated, which was really nice. And it also means that I have pretty much all the updated knowledge for you today about OKRs, what works, what doesn't work. So we're going to be able to really explore that together. Quickly, the agenda for today. I first want to start with really explaining what OKRs are, how they work. And then we're going to look at 2 case studies as well, so that you can kind of see how they're used in different industries. I'm going to talk about something very exciting called the OKR cake. And then I'm also going to give you some homework so that you can start thinking about how you can use OKRs in your business. Yeah, so I hope that sounds good for the 45 minutes that we have together. Okay, let's go. So the OKR basics. What you need to know is an OKR always consists of an objective and a key result. And the objective is always the qualitative part of it. So there is no measurable factor there. It's just an inspirational, ambitious goal. So for example, it can be to become more healthy. Then you have the key result, and the key result is always the measurable part of the objective. So it shows a way that you can track progress towards your objective. That's the key result. So in this case, the key result is to lower your fat percentage to a certain number. And that is honestly all there is to an OKR: an objective, qualitative, and a key result, quantitative. And the key result should always have a number in it so that you're able to track progress. Then to the key results, there's actually different ambition levels. And we're going to see examples of this. So don't worry if right now you're still a little bit like, what does this mean? The key result 1.0 is the key result that I just showed you before. That's actually 28%. That is the most ambitious result. So that is the result that you would really want to get to. And if you get there, it would have been really hard work. You would have been really proud, and you're really going to celebrate because it's amazing that you got there. The 0.7 key result is a little bit of a lower target. So that is what you hope to achieve and where you hope to end up. It's difficult to get there, but it is still achievable. And the 0.3 result is what you hope to get if you kind of keep working the way you're working now. And I call that business as usual. effort. Now let's look at the example that I just showed you before, which is about becoming more healthy and fit and about the 5%. So if you kind of put that framework on it with the different key results, this is what you would get. So the most ambitious key result here is the 28%. Then your target key result where you hope to end up is 30%. And if you just keep doing the things the same way and you're kind of trying to improve a little bit, so to speak, then you would end up at 34%. So these are 3 different layers of the key result. And I would highly recommend to write your key results like this. You will see that many companies actually only write the key result 1.0, and the other layers or levels, they kind of have in the back of their mind. But I know that it's really handy to actually write these steps down so that you know during the quarter exactly where you are and how much you still need to get to, for example, 1.0 or 0.7. I call this the ladder because you can imagine there is like a little step-by-step going from the 0.3 result to the 1.0 key result. And we'll see a lot more examples of this, so don't worry if this is still a little bit new for you. We will see plenty of examples throughout the presentation, so you will become more familiar and comfortable with the concept. Instead of a ladder, you could also use something like a plant. That is just to show that you don't need to necessarily put the ladder label on it. There's also companies that use kind of a plant format for this, or you could do something with animals of different sizes. For example, the 1.0 key result would be an elephant, and the 0.3 would be like a smaller animal, like a cat or something. That's completely up to you, and that's a fun way you can kind of personalize OKRs in your company and customize them. Let's look at another example. There can be someone who says, well, my objective is to make the company more sustainable, more green. We want to kind of start thinking about the planet. Then you can have the 3 key results that are part of that objective. The first one is the 80%. That is our most ambitious key result. So we hope that with a lot of work, a lot of effort, we would end up there. This is, of course, very difficult. So most of the time it won't be possible that we end up there, but we hope then to probably end up on the 0.7 key result. That would be 50%. And then we have the 0.3 key result, which would be the 20%. So you can almost imagine that you have an objective and a key result. The key result is always the 80%, right here, or the most ambitious level. And you can almost imagine double clicking on that KR 1.0 key result, and then the 0.7 and the 0.3 kind of pop up as different layers within that. But like I said, there's some companies that only write the objective and the KR 1.0 because they find that enough. But from experience, I know that employees and also leadership teams like to see these steps. So that's why it's good to incorporate them, especially in the beginning when you're introducing OKRs to the company. Let's look at the reasons why you would want to use OKRs in a business environment. So I would like to cover 3 reasons. The first one being that it really creates a lot of focus and priorities for you. If you set OKRs, just as with setting any goals, I guess, is that you really know where you want to go. You have like a list of things that you want to finish, and that's it. If every leadership team has 2-3 OKRs that they want to focus on, then it's also clear what their priorities are. And then it's also easier to say no to work that is, for example, a distraction. So focus and priorities is very, very important one. Another reason why you would want to introduce OKRs and incorporate them in your business is because they provide a lot of possibility for you to innovate. And why is that? That's because OKRs are ambitious goals. The key result 1.0 is always a very ambitious result. And ambition is a step towards innovation. Well, how does that work? Imagine that I, Melanie, bake 7 apple pies a week. And I always do the same thing. I have my routine. I do my groceries in one supermarket. And I work on, for example, Wednesday and Thursday to make the apple pies. And then by the end of the week, I always have 7. Now, if I want to kind of be ambitious and really stretch myself and write an OKR, then I can say, well, instead of baking 7, I'm going to bake 12. But then actually, is that really ambitious? 12, because I would probably then still go to the same supermarket, still have my same routine. I would just work a little bit harder to bake more apple pies, because I don't need to bake 7 now, I need to bake 12. But in essence, it's not that different. It's just baking a little bit more, so I have to be faster and I have to just do more work. But what if I said, well, instead of 7 apple pies, I'm going to bake 50. Well, then even if I work harder and I do my groceries in the same shop and I just maybe skip some nights to bake, then I will probably still not get there. So that means I'll have to innovate. I'll need to maybe have my groceries delivered instead of that I get them myself. That is to save time. I would probably have to delegate some tasks to friends. Maybe some of my friends can bake apple pies as well. I would have to think, how am I going to work differently to be able to make this? And that is the very interesting part of OKRs, is that it really allows this out of the box thinking, because you can't continue working the way you normally do. If you have a target that is very ambitious, then you have to really step up your game, think outside the box, see like, how can I make this? Because it seems impossible, but maybe there is a way. So that is, I would say, the second most beautiful thing about OKRs. And then the third reason why you would want to introduce OKRs is because it really creates a lot of alignment in your company. I don't know if any of you recognize what's happening in this picture. It's 2 teams who are working on the same problem, but they have different solutions. And this is what I saw happening a lot in companies where I worked, but also where I helped with OKRs, is that there was a lot of overlap and that was a lot of waste of money. And because OKRs are publicly available for everyone to see, this happens a lot less. I'm not going to sit here and say that it never happens again, because of course in big companies these things happen, but they happen a lot less, I would say. So those are 3 really essential, interesting reasons why you would want to introduce OKRs. Then let's look at the OKR flow. OKRs are always introduced from the top of the company towards the teams. I also read a lot of things about OKRs, and I talk to people, and I hear a lot that it's also possible to do it the other way around, to start introducing OKRs from a team level and then start using it in the company. Personally, I believe a lot less in a long-term kind of success rate. I really believe that it's important first for the leadership team and for the company to own OKRs and to have them, and that it will work much better that way. But of course, I'm not going to say that you cannot experiment with this, or that in some maybe smaller companies it might work to do more of a bottom-up introduction. But for the sake of what I believe in my presentation, I'm going to say it really works best if you start with the top of the company. If the company has a very clear mission, vision, and values, then it will be quite clear for a leadership team to set their OKRs, and then based on that, departments would set their OKRs and the teams as well. So it's kind of a trickle-down effect where everyone is inspired by the goals of the business layer right above. Now, the biggest advantage probably of OKRs, because of this effect where every layer in the company, so to speak, has these OKRs and they're kind of influencing the OKRs beneath them, is that everything in the company becomes connected. So people don't have these loosely coupled goals anymore, but everything is connected. So if I'm in a team, my OKR is connected to the department OKR, and that department OKR is connected to the company OKR. So then you see that there is just this big red thread running through the company, which really creates a lot of clarity around what the company wants to do, where you want to be at. So that is really a nice thing. Also, a lot of the companies today work mainly with millennials, or people who are kind of in the millennial generation and who find it very important to have a purpose at work. I always say it's not enough for people anymore to just go to work and to sit there and do their job. A lot of us want to have a clear goal. We want to feel connected. We want to understand why we're working hard, why we're going to wake up in the morning, going to the office, or actually logging in to to be able to attend meetings, because we want to feel a sense of purpose. And OKRs really help with that as well, because they show your team, for example, what you're going to work on the quarter, and also how your goals are connected to the goals of the company and of the department. So in that sense, you will feel a lot more purpose, and also a lot more a kind of attraction maybe to the company and to the people in it, because you know kind of how you're all working together towards this common vision and this common goal. Then I want to share quickly a little bit about OKRs and KPIs, because this is an important differentiation to make. OKRs are objectives and key results, like we said, and KPIs are key performance indicators. Usually key performance indicators are part of an OKR because they are embedded in the key results. For example, in this example, we have an objective, and the KPI, the average registration time, is embedded in the key result. It is the measurable part, so to speak. And that doesn't always happen, that a KPI is part of an OKR, but it does usually happen when a KPI is kind of not healthy. So if you see that one of your KPIs in the business is going much lower than you expected or much higher, and you want to get it back to healthy, then it would be really smart to put it into a key result so that you can actually influence it and work on it for like a quarter, so that you can make sure that it goes back to healthy again. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this already, but OKRs are usually set over a quarter. So that is 3 months. You can also do it longer or shorter. There is no rules around it, but in general, a quarter for using a set of OKRs is really good. What I'd like to do next is slowly start to look at some examples so that we can really get the hang of what good OKRs look like and what might not be so good about certain OKRs and the way they are written. And I think we always learn best by examples. So let's go through the examples here and have a look together at what could be better for each of them. So also for everyone watching, kind of think to yourself, like, is this a good OKR or would I change something about it? And if I would change something about it, what would that be? Okay, so here the objective is to reduce customer complaints. So this is a very standard customer service OKR that I would see a lot. And the key results are all made of these different tasks or these different actions that need to happen. Now, I would say this is not really a good OKR. Why? Because the key results do not contain a measurable item. And also there is not really a ladder format in the key results. So you could say, you could do the 0.7 key result, you could reach that without actually having worked on the 0.3 key results. And you could get to the 1.0 key result without actually having done anything about the lower two. So these are all kind of random tasks, and they don't necessarily guarantee that when you do them, you will reduce the customer complaints. We call this a tasky key result. And this is a very important thing. You never want your key results to contain tasks. You always want to focus on results. And we're going to dive into that a little bit later as well. But for now, this is very important to remember. Okay, this one. New database up and running for the tech department. And then there are 3 key results and one is kind of missing. Now, the answer here is, of course, that most of us will see there's something wrong with this OKR because the key result 0.7 is missing. In this case, it would be good to think about what do we want to actually reach with this objective. So we want to have a new database up and running. But is the result really that the database is live, or is it something else? And when you coach a team like this, on how they can improve this OKR. This is, for example, really from a real team. I asked them, what do you want to achieve? And actually the database being live was not their main concern. They wanted people to be able to use the database. They wanted a certain amount of users to be able to be active in the database by a certain end date. So in this case, the database being live, it's kind of like an action that is going to have to be fulfilled along the way in order to reach your real result. And the real result is having X amount of people using the database. So in that sense, the key results here are not really correct. They're kind of just showing again tasks, but they're not really highlighting the actual result, which is about the amount of customers that you want to have, or the amount of users that you want to be using that. And also, if you would use that, your key result would become measurable. And right now it isn't. So that is another thing that you would really want to incorporate again. The key results have to be measurable, and they really need to be a result. They shouldn't be a task. Okay, another example, increase active EPT users in Europe. Now, when you look at this for the first time, probably you think, okay, it looks quite good. There is different layers within the key results. There is this ladder with the different steps. There are numbers in the key results, so it must be measurable. Unfortunately, the fact that there is a number in a key result doesn't necessarily mean that it's measurable. I think we can all agree here that the measurable part seems a little bit superficial because you're just talking about different rounds. So it would be really good again here to think about what is the actual result, because this looks more like you want to start something. It's vague and it's also very task oriented, but you actually want to think like, what do you want to achieve by doing this database optimization? Maybe by doing this database optimization, you want to increase a certain engagement score, for example. And then that engagement score is actually the key result, not the database optimization that you're going to work on in order to reach it. Another thing I would like to highlight here is that the active EPT users, I don't know what it means. You probably don't know what it means. It sounds like company jargon, and it's important that when you write OKRs that you're very clear about what is in the OKR. So you don't want to use weird acronyms, or you don't want to use business language that maybe not everyone understands. You want to make it very easy for your employees to understand and read your OKR. So I would also refrain here from using EPT because we don't know what it stands for. We don't understand what it means. So maybe just write out the whole word, or make the objective a little bit longer so that it's very clear what you're trying to achieve. Okay, increase customer happiness. I think that is something that a lot of companies want to do. Here we have key results around the NPS score. And the NPS score stands for Net Promoter Score. It's basically a score compiled of how much someone who has used your product would recommend it so that someone else can use it as well. I would say this one looks actually pretty okay. Yeah, because we have a clear result here, which is an improvement of the NPS. We know where we are right now, which is at 6. We know where we want to go to 8.5. And there's a clear ladder format. Of course, the question is, does an NPS necessarily show customer happiness? Maybe not, but I think in this case, this team decided that it is linked, and they wrote it like this. And I think they did a pretty good job, because it does look good. It's a proper OKR. It's results focused. So I would say if we talk about like or dislike, this one is definitely a like, or more a like than a dislike in that sense. Okay, another example, increase OKR knowledge amongst our leaders. Here you can maybe say workshop can be webinar, because we are now doing a webinar, but here the key results are focused on having different workshops completed. I would say that is not a good OKR, because again, you're focusing on tasks. You're not focusing on actual results. The fact that you have a workshop completed doesn't necessarily mean that you increase your OKR knowledge. So maybe it would be better to say, like, after the workshop, people have to fill out a survey to show what their knowledge is and how their knowledge has increased. And maybe then the results of the survey can be the key results actually in the OKR. But like this, there's not necessarily an improvement, right, in someone's skills just because they attended a workshop. So you would have to find the measurable aspect here that you can embed in the key result. What about this? Our own employees can set their own OKRs. 100% of teams have OKRs in place, and then 70-30. I would say that's a much better team. That's a better OKR. That is a lot more results focused. Okay, then I would quickly like to still focus on the task problem because we've seen it many times. Key results that are filled with tasks and not with actual results. I want to give you an example from my own OKR collection. Last quarter, I wanted to improve my chess skills because I had watched this series. You might have seen it on Netflix called The Queen's Gambit. And I had never played chess and I really wanted to get good at it. So I asked some friends about what OKR I could set. And this is what we came up with in the beginning, or actually my friends came up with it. So my objective was to learn how to play chess. And then these are the key results that we had written up. Now this probably can help with improving chess, but you can also see again that it's very tasky. I can buy a chessboard, but then never play chess. I can sign up for a chess membership at one of the chess websites, and then that doesn't mean that I became better at chess because I can sign up. That will take me maybe 2 minutes, and then I've already reached my 0.7, right? So we have to find a way to actually make this more results driven. Then we came up with this as a kind of nice sub-step in a way, or sub-OKR. I want to learn how to play chess. Okay, I don't want to focus so much on tasks, so let's focus on playing games. Now, maybe the problem again here is that you can play games, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're getting better at chess. And this is also where I kind of started thinking, well, how do I know that I got better at chess? How do people in general know that they get better at chess? Like there must be some kind of chess rating or chess score or global chess number that once you pass that number, you are seen as a chess master, grandmaster or something. So I did a lot of investigation, and then indeed I discovered that there is a chess rating, and that is therefore the rating that you can also use in a key result because it's a result that you're aiming for. So the good thing to remember is in the chess OKRs that I showed you before is that you can have done the things in the key results and you can have focused on them, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have become better in your chess game. So you need to actually, put those chess ratings that I was talking about in the key results, for example, and then you really have a clear kind of result there. If my rating is going to be 1,000 or maybe a little bit more, like 1,100, then truly I am getting better at chess because my rating is going up, and that's the official rating for chess players all over the world. So now we really have a proper OKR that is written in such a way that it is really having a number, that it is a clear result, and that it's not secretly a task. So this is just to show you again how you can have the different chess ratings in your key results and how the tasks are really a separate part of it. So the tasks you don't write with the OKR, but of course they are still necessary for you in order to get to your OKR, in order to complete your OKR, you will have to do tasks. So for me personally, when I had written this OKR, I knew that there were things that I still had to do in the tasks area in order to get to my chess rating and to get it up. So for example, I did have to sign up for a membership. I did have to get a chessboard. I was going to read a book. I had to play games, but those were all things that were not part of my OKR, as in they were not written in the OKR, but they were still things that I had to do in order to get my OKR to be successful. Yeah. So write your results in the OKR, and tasks should be somewhere else. You should keep track of what you need to do in order to get there, but don't put that in the OKR itself. Okay, this is just another example for you to look at. A bad example because these are things that are not measurable again. you can't really prove that they make the empathy level here of customer service agents better. So again, bad example, you would probably here want to focus again on something like an NPS score or metric so that you can really get to a better result. And if you see that you're stuck in the task area, which I call it usually, of an OKR, so that you can come up with tasks or actions that you need to do, but you find it hard to get to the result, then you can always ask yourself, well, by doing this task, what am I trying to achieve? What outcome am I trying to reach? And if you ask yourself that question, then it's quite easy to go from the task layer to the results layer. So that is a little trick that you can use if you find it easy to come up with the task, but not with the result. Okay, let's quickly move through some OKR insights that I gathered over the years and that I think are very valuable to share. Important when you set OKRs is that you don't set many. You just want to set maybe 2 or 3, and you want an OKR to have 1 key result or maybe a couple. But don't do an OKR with more than 2 key results, I would say. And also, if you're on a team, maybe set 1 OKR or 2. I'm an OKR minimalist. I believe the more focus you have, the more you can do, and the less distractions you have to face. So less is more. Also, when you start working with OKRs, dump the perfectionism, because there's always going to go things not really your way. Maybe when you introduce them in a company, it will take some time for everyone to pick up on it. So I would say be easy on yourself. Start the introduction with an agile mindset that you're going to try something out and get better at it. So please don't try to be too perfect from the start. Make it fun, which is important. And I think this kind of is important for any process that you introduce in a company. Find ways to make it fun. For example, with the animals that we talked about before, if you make the different key result layers animals or flowers, or you can do something that is customized to your company culture, but make it a little bit fun and don't make it too serious. It's important that you're going to be consistent. So if you introduce OKRs, really have a plan in place. Make sure that you have proper check-in meetings planned for all the teams so that they can check in on their progress. Also make sure that there is a clear OKR calendar so that leadership team creates OKRs, and then the departments can, and the teams. I've seen companies, or I have worked with companies where the OKRs from the leadership are always late, and as a result, the department and the teams cannot set them properly because they are influenced by them. So it's important that you're consistent. The pitfalls of OKRs is really to introduce it as a huge process, I would say. A lot of people are usually kind of scared of huge processes. So I would say it again, try to be agile about it and say, we have a new thing that we want to try, OKRs. We're just slowly going to start using this at leadership level. And then the quarter after we'll start at departments, and the quarter after maybe with teams, but you just do it slowly, and you don't need to go into this huge process immediately. Another important thing is make sure that you write your OKRs down, or that you have a tool in your business where you can obviously set them so that they are publicly available, that all the teams know where to find them. This is very important. So you can use a tool for this or something else, but make sure that they are somewhere for everyone to see and to have access to. Another thing that is important with OKRs is that you remember where the dependencies are. And if you don't think about your dependencies, then that's a problem, because then you cannot make sure that your OKRs are aligned properly. So if I am in a team and I have an OKR that is dependent on another team, then I need to make sure that someone from that team is aware of my OKR and also maybe present in my OKR setting meeting, so that we can make sure that we know what we are working on together. Another pitfall for OKRs is to have an unsafe company culture. OKRs are ambitious goals, which means that it's not always going to be easy to reach the 1.0, and it's probably not even going to be possible most of the time. So you're going to fail. And also, sometimes just with ambitious goals, you fail miserably because you just don't get to it. But failing is part of a learning. There's always new discoveries to be made in failed things. Huh? Sometimes they say you invent something else when you fail at one thing because it helps you to see something that is not working, and that's also a learning. So if you have a company culture where people are not allowed to fail or it's scary, then I would say OKRs are not such a good idea, because you first need to work on making sure that everyone in the company actually feels safe at being ambitious, at innovating. And with innovation, of course, comes failure. So I would say then you have to focus on that first. If you start introducing OKRs in an unsafe culture, it's probably going to get very messy soon. Another thing that is important is that you don't focus too much on the scoring status and the in the key results. So for example, there is not necessarily a linear correlation between the 1.0 key result and the number that's in the 1.0 key result. It's more just to give you an overview of the different levels. I've seen this specifically with working with people who are very analytical. They think there is some kind of correlation, but it's probably much easier to focus on the impediments in a key result and why you're not getting to somewhere, instead of focusing on whether you are now at a 0.3 key result or at a 0.4 in your check-in meeting, or maybe a 0.4.5. The 0.3, the 0.7, and the 1.0 are guiding factors, so they help you to kind of know where you are, but you don't have to make like a super specific game out of it in that sense. Then I want to quickly talk about 2 case studies, so that you get a bit of an idea, like what are the learnings exactly from that? How did we introduce OKR, and what kind of happened there? The first case study is from the travel industry, where I was working in a high pressure environment. There were lots of priorities. It was very fast growing. There were new teams created weekly. I think this is also very kind of startup atmosphere, right? There's a lot of pressure, and we need to innovate every week, and things change all the time. Everyone is super busy, but it's not always clear what needs to happen and what the shared vision is or the shared goal. So the first thing we did here is train the leadership team on OKRs and also the department heads. And then we trained a lot of people inside the company to work as kind of OKR evangelists or OKR ambassadors, so that they could answer questions and stuff. So that took around 2 weeks. And then the second stage of the introduction took almost like a year. And that was really where departments and teams were able to experiment with OKRs, that then use the OKRs of the company, and the departments also to kind of get a hang of it and to know what they needed to align to. And this was also a time where we worked on how to create good ceremonies for OKR. So that is like meetings where you check in on the scores and see, are you very off or are you actually going in the right direction? So this is also the moment where we made sure that teams were able to kind of establish how they wanted to do these meetings, and also at department levels, because there needs to be a sync moment, obviously, between those two. So that took about 1 year, I would say, for a general introduction. But overall, afterwards, the work is not done, of course. So then, yeah, you still need to work on having your OKR meetings. But I would say it took about 1 year to be in the rhythm of the OKRs. This is the top 3 outcome. I think the biggest one was probably that there was more focus for everyone. So that was really helpful with the OKRs. In terms of the biggest learnings, I would say, was that the leadership team really needs to be the role model in such a case when you're introducing OKRs, because if they are not serious about it and they don't really believe in it, then you can already see at department and team level that people also don't believe in it, because they're like, well, if the leadership is not doing it, why would we do it? So that was definitely a learning, that leadership team has a crucial role in this whole OKR implementation. And this is also personally with my company why I always start working with leadership team. And I don't take on any work from companies that don't want to include their leadership team in the OKR framework and the OKR implementation. Because if the leadership team is not involved, then I know already that the implementation won't be that successful. Also important that leadership teams are really the ambassadors as well, right? That there is one person specifically in the leadership team who can really be a spokesperson for OKRs and kind of promote them. Another thing we learned was that there needs to be a very clear OKR schedule with when everyone is setting their OKRs, because otherwise people would forget. And just to skip to the last one is that a really big learning was that actually a lot of teams don't have enough data to set key results because they don't really know yet what their KPIs are, or they don't really know what results they're going after. So in this particular company, there was a lot of work to be done during the OKR implementation around how do people actually measure results and how do they know what results they are going for. Another case study from the transport industry. So you can read a little bit here in the different points what kind of organization this was. So again, kind of high growth, lots of disorganization, as in so much change that it feels really unorganized. And I think in this particular company, there was a lot of unclarity in the leadership vision. Now, what did we do? Again, first trained leadership team, because without that, your OKR implementation is probably not going to work as well. So we looked at the company first, the company level, we set a vision, mission, and values. Only once we had done that, which is really the top layer of the OKRs, we started to set leadership and department OKRs, so company and department OKRs. And in that particular group, we set OKR process agreements so that this specific leadership group would come together every week to check in on their OKRs and to kind of gather learnings and to see how it was going for them. So we took 1 month for that. And then the second month we used to keep iterating on that. So to keep getting better as a leadership team. So we reviewed the OKRs that they had set together monthly, we reflected on them, and only afterwards did we start to really roll out OKRs to the different teams and start really to educate people in the company to become OKR evangelists or ambassadors. And only then did we really focus on making sure that the teams did the right reviews and that the teams were comfortable. So we really took a lot of time in the beginning to focus 100% on the leadership team. Now, what were the outcomes? You can see them here. I think the main one is definitely that there was a more engaged leadership team because they had a clear vision now and they knew what they were going to do. And of course, the other two are also important, but I think the first one was definitely the one that stood out most for me. And in terms of learnings, again, I would say they are exactly the same as in the previous case study. So the leadership team should be the role model. There needs to be ambassadors. There needs to be a clear schedule. I haven't talked about this in the previous example, but the purpose of teams needs to be clear. Because if they're not, then teams can feel a little bit lost. They don't really know what they're doing in the company. And then when you don't know what you're doing and you have to set a goal, that's going to be very hard. So this kind of OKR implementation also brought to light that there were a lot of teams that had an unclear purpose in the company. So we had to kind of redefine with them what they were going to work on and why they existed. And a very important one is also, again, the data points. So in this company, a lot of teams, they didn't know how to track their progress. They didn't know what data was available for them. And as a result, they found it very difficult to set OKR. So we had to do a lot of extra work and education around how do you actually know what results you're trying to get to, where can you find this, how do we make these KPIs or data points available to people so that they have access to them, etc. So a lot of learnings in that sense. Last thing that I want to share with you quickly, because we are already running out of time, is baking the OKR cake. That is just a little help that I created so that it's easier for you to remember how do you actually build the right OKRs. Well, first of all, when you write an OKR, it's very important that you collect your ingredients. So in this case, your ingredients for OKRs are collecting strategic input first. So those are the things that are mentioned here on the slide. It's important that you have these things in order to be able to set your OKRs. Another ingredient that you would want to have is key priorities for your company, for your department, if you're setting department ones, or for your team, if you're setting team ones. Think about what you want to do. What are the priorities for you during the quarter? Another key ingredient is seeing what data points do I have already? Is there something that I still need to find how to measure, or is it already clear, or does maybe someone else know? Do we have dashboards where information is available, and is this where I can find maybe the results that I'm wanting to measure? And another key ingredient is really to identify kind of, are there other teams that are working on the same goal, and can we work together? Can we share an OKR, or can we maybe see if we can be in each other's OKR meetings so that we are fully aligned? So these are some things to remember as well. So once you have your ingredients that I just discussed, then you can actually start baking your OKR cake, or writing your OKRs. You have the ingredients, now writing them should be pretty easy. So, and of course, once you've written them, then you should have a delicious cake. And then the next thing you want to do is make sure that you schedule continuous kind of sync meetings with teams that are doing similar things that you ask feedback about your OKRs, that you put them also in an OKR tool. And last but definitely not least is that you check in regularly on your OKRs. This is probably the most important thing, is that if you write a goal and you never look at it, you're not going to really make progress, probably, because you're not constantly seeing that goal and being inspired by it. So check in regular is a very important next step. Once you've set the OKR, you're not done. That's when the work starts. Okay, so we've come to the end of the webinar. What I would love to do is give you a little something to think about and to bring back home with you. I want you to think about your top business priorities, maybe the 2 to 3 biggest ones. And then I want you to think about how you will measure progress towards them, so the key results. And then probably it would be really great if you can kind of team up with someone who is also watching this webinar, show what you've come up with, and kind of quality check each other's OKRs. So you want to make sure that they're really results, that they're not tasks, and that also the ladder or the different levels are right in terms of ambition level. You want to make sure that the 1.0 is very ambitious and not something that you can do overnight, right? So I would say, think about this and come up with an OKR and pick someone who is also watching this webinar. And if that's not possible, maybe someone in your surroundings who knows about OKRs, and quality check them together. Then I have a wonderful book for you to read. It's actually a very short book. It's called Radical Focus by Christina Wodka. It's a really nice, little piece of work on OKRs. And the reason why I always recommend this book to people, and I'm not getting anything for this promotion, is just because I like it. It's because it's quite a small book. It's easy to read, and it's also written in the way as a story. So it won't feel like you're reading a boring business book, but it will feel like you're actually reading a fun novel, and integrated into the novel is all the OKR knowledge that you might need. And this book will go a little bit more in depth into some of the points. Before I close, I would like to say that it's important when you introduce OKRs to know that there is not something like an OKR Bible, in the sense that there is not necessarily one way to set OKRs. I always promote being very minimalistic with OKRs, not to write that many. There will be people who disagree with me and say you have to write many. I will have certain ways of doing OKRs that other OKR experts might do differently. This is the same as, for example, when you work on an agile transformation in your company, or you work on different engagement processes. There will always be different opinions about how to do things. So if you start using OKRs, I would say take the basis from a book like this, from my webinar, from other sources, but also keep using your logical head, right? To see, like, does this work for me or not? And where do I need to adjust? for example, before we go, if you read in a book that you have to have OKRs that run over a quarter, sure, you can do that. But if you discover in your company that it makes more sense to have them run over a period of 6 months, then that's also okay. That's possible. And you can experiment with that and see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, then yeah, just try something else. But don't be completely stuck to how it needs to happen according to books or according to someone else. Just see what works for you. And with that, I would like to say thank you so much for watching the webinar. I hope it was interesting for you. And I'm very, very much looking forward to actually see you again at the webinar or at the live Q&A. And if you have any questions there for me, I'd be super excited to answer them for you. Thank you so much and see you soon. Bye.